Welcome back to IDE 1932 Technical Writing. I am Nihasan Silva. Today we will look at writing research proposals. This is the color coding that we will be using for this lecture and all the subsequent lectures. Please pause here for a bit and remember this color coding. As this image says, a research proposal is a formal document that explains what you are planning to study, why it is worth researching, and how. All of these questions should be answered in your proposal. Before you begin a research, you are required to submit a proposal. Sometimes it is for approval reasons, sometimes it is for monetary reasons, such as grants. By reviewing your proposal, the faculty members will decide whether to accept or deny. Sometimes it is the scope, maybe it's too large or too small, maybe the relevance of the research is too low, or maybe there are ethical concerns. So we'll see how to write an effective proposal. In big, you might have to submit research proposals yourself. You need to present a strong proposal in order to get the approval and get started. The topic that you are researching on should be specific and unambiguous. You have to explain what is being investigated, who or what it involves, what is the data, what are the people you are going to involve in this research, and what is the context. The context matters a lot. Sometimes the same type of research may be done in different contexts. Maybe a sentiment analysis work can be done in restaurant domain, but it might not be directly relevant to a sentiment analysis in the legal domain. Components. So we'll look at what are the parts of the introduction, significance, literature review, design methods, implications, and conclusion. Citations. The first part we look at is the introduction. Think about the introduction as a small essay, few paragraphs that you write. Say, what is your research? So you need to answer the following questions. What is the central research problem? What is the topic? So you can bring back what you mentioned earlier. And why is it unique? So uniqueness is a tricky question. Sometimes you might be reusing data, sometimes you might be using algorithms, but still it can be unique if you are the first person to put these things together. And why we are talking about methodologies, what are the methods that we are going to use? And why is it an important work? What is the significance? Why are the outcomes important? An example is when the very first research on lasers came out, it had no practical application. It was completely theoretical. But still, after a few years, it became a practical application. And you can see lasers all over the commercial space. And while we are talking about commercial space, sometimes proposals need you to mention its commercial value. Not always, but in some cases. Now we move on to background and significance. Again, you need to say why is it important. You have to restate the research problem and explain the purpose of the study. This is very important if it is complex or multiple. If it has many phases, if it can be analyzed in various perspectives. Maybe a research that you do can be analyzed in the mathematical perspective, social aspect perspective, and so on and so forth. You have to present the rationale of your proposal and clearly indicate why is it worth doing. It is to answer the usual antagonistic question, so what? So when you might be interested or excited about your work, but you have to be ready to answer when you explain it. And somebody says, so what? Why should I care? So you are answering that question here. It is implicitly asked. So you have to answer, why should anyone, why should the reader, why should the panel care about your research? Why does it matter? What is the difference that you are going to make in the scientific community or the society at large? What are the major issues or problems that we address? Very importantly, what are the previous work that you are building upon? As Sir Isaac Newton mentioned, the only reason that I have seen far is because I stood on the shoulders of giants. So in research, it is a very important point to use, reuse, and build upon previous work. Explaining more on background and significance, you have to explain how you are going to go about conducting the research. What are the key sources and how they will contribute to your analysis? What are the data sources, what code or methodologies that you would be getting? You need to set boundaries. So in research, you might be tempted to solve all the problems that are relevant, but it's rather impossible. So you need to set the boundaries and determine what is in the scope and what is out of the scope. And you have to clearly focus on the things that are in the scope. Things that are out of scope, you might be able to mention in future work, and maybe you might be able to pick them up, but in a different research, not this particular proposal. Again, you have to mention what you will study and what is excluded from study. Sometimes you need to provide definitions of the important concepts of that, because the people that are reading your proposal might not be as well versed in the particular domain that you are working in. They might be experts in the generic domain, but not this specific problem. So it's important to give out definitions so that the reader can understand what you are talking about. Now we move on to the literature review. This is very relevant to the background and significance. However, this is the place where you talk about the deliberate review and synthesis of the prior studies that we talked about earlier. How do they come together in your study to result in your work? Where exactly does your work place in the larger whole? Why is it your work that we would call original and innovative? You might be using old data, you might be using old methodologies or algorithms, but still, if you are the first person to put two of these things together, that is still innovative. Good example is a machine learning system that was used in Japan in pastry shops to automated billing by recognizing what type of pastries that a person has on their plate. Found to be useful to recognize stomach cancer, because those cells look like little pastries as well. See, just like that, research can be transformative from one domain to another, and still it is innovative. Okay, let's move on and look at the 5 C's of writing a literature review. The first and foremost, very importantly, we have cite. You need to keep the primary focus of the literature relevant to your research problem, and you have an ethical obligation to cite everything that you are using. If you are using somebody else's work, somebody else's data, you need to cite it. If you are using their methods, if you are using their code, you need to cite it. Even if you are disproving something that they have done. You have to cite it. The first one after citing itself is compare. So once you have cited and once you know where things are coming from, you have to compare them and see what are the things that people have done similarly. What are the common practices in this domain? What is the general accepted? You might decide to go against this in your particular research, but still you have to report on what are the general accepted practices. You might be doing groundbreaking research, that is fine, but you still need to say this is how it is right now. Next one is contrast. What are the points that the previous researchers do not agree on? What are the things that they argue about? What are the things that they disprove each other? Can you also get them? So you need to do a contrast. To say, oh, this person used this technology, but this other person said, no, this other technology is better. Then critique the literature. What are the most valuable arguments that people have seen? Is one research more reliable than another? Is a single paper in a higher level journal or a conference, and is it better than something that is in a lower level journal or a conference? Is the work done more rigorous or not? Because even if you used it as a rule of thumb, it does not always translate. Most of the time it does, but sometimes somebody might be going upstream. A very good example is how some of Google's research are never in peer-reviewed publications. Sometimes they are just in archive. That does not mean that they are garbage work. They are still very good research that would stand like a bone. You can see that by the number of citations these work would have. That is also an important point. Does the other researchers think about this work? So you can see if they are being cited a lot. Maybe they are very important. Sometimes the citations are to say that this is a bad work. Then you have to actually read who's citing. And the last thing is to connect this literature to your own area. So you have been reading and you have been criticizing, you have been comparing, contrasting. Now you have to say, why are all of these relevant to my work? What I am proposing? How would they come together to build on your work? Next, we move on to research design methods. So the research methodology that you are proposing, that you are recommending, is not just a list of things. It's an argument on why and how you will investigate the research problem. It is not a list of saying, I'll do this, then I'll do that, then I'll do that, and my research is done. You have to say why you are doing something, how you are doing something, and how it is compared to what other people have done, and so on and so forth. It's an important point because you have to say how you effectively address the research problem. You can discuss the following practicalities. How you will undertake the research. Is the research design appropriate for this particular topic? What are the constraints? Do you have time constraints, money constraints, expertise constraints? Will you take a qualitative approach or a quantitative approach? Or even if it is a qualitative approach, you might create a golden data set using humans and convert it into quantitative analysis. But be mindful to have internal data agreement and so on and so forth. Will your design be cross-sectional, longitudinal? or maybe both. It's a little both at the same time, but you need to address where your research is going, where you expect to take it. How will you collect data? Will you use a web crawl? Will you interview people? Will you give people surveys? Or will you download the Wikipedia articles as XML files? You need to mention this. How will you analyze your data? Will you do statistical analysis? Will you run it through an artificial neural network? Has other people done this? Why is what you are doing important? Or why is what you are doing unique? Why is it new? Now let's look at preliminary implications. This section will argue how and what ways that you will think this research will refine, revise, or extend the existing knowledge in this subject area. Depends on your aims and objectives that you define, how it will impact the future scholarly theory, practice, forms of intelligence, or policy making, especially if it is a social work, social research, policy making. It's important. It will decide whether to give those people a bridge, give a certain community a bridge, or put a board service. So sometimes research, you might not see this in pure computer science research, but sometimes we have research that bridge various aspects. So things might have a direct impact on people's lives and their future. These discussions may include one of the reasons. Substantial and the potential policy of significance. Maybe they are theoretical, new understanding, or maybe they are methodological, potential new way of analyzing. Once we have this, we move on to conclusion. So this is not the conclusion of the presentation, this is the conclusion of your proposal that you are writing. The conclusion part reiterates the importance and the significance of your proposal, and it also gives a brief summary of what you talked about so far. It should be only 1 or 2 paragraphs, and again you should reiterate things like why is it worth investigating, why is it unique, and how it will advance existing knowledge. The last part of your proposal are the citations. You must cite your sources. It is very important and ethical part of researching that you should give due credit to your priors. Cite the sources. So there's a slight difference between references and bibliography. References would be the list of the literature that you have actually used in your work, and bibliography would be everything that you have used in your work, and maybe some key sources relevant to understanding the research problem. Finally, we come to a line by Albert Einstein where he said, if we knew what we were doing, it would not be called research. So when you're writing a research proposal, always remember that research is speculative. So keep space and freedom to move and wiggle about, because research, things might change when you start working on it. Shall see you in next lecture.